You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world.
When I was homeless, living in a tent on food bank handouts, living on less than $500 a month, and I lived in that poverty for over 12 years, I could never, ever have imagined being number one business or performance coach globally or, global visionary of the year. Like, are you kidding? That wasn't even on my radar.
Rhiannon Rees is a human behavior expert. She's an international high-performance coach and self-development expert, helping CEOs, businesses, elite athletes, and celebrities to redefine their level of success. She is from Australia, as you will soon hear with her lovely accent, and she is a best-selling author, a thriving entrepreneur, and a global speaker. Her personal suffering led her into a 30-year study of human behavior. Completely compelled to help others, she has continued to invest in education and self-development, neuroscience, and business. She's the founder of Conscious Coaching Collective, demonstrating success in creating both multi-million-dollar companies and individuals and champions. Welcome to the show, Rhiannon.
Oh, thanks for having me here, Sandy. There's your Aussie accent right there.
That's right. I love the Aussie accent. So we always start out with defining woman of value as it applies to your life and maybe to the lives of other women.
As a woman, we have so many responsibilities, not just with our work, but with our family, and we're natural nurturers. So I think women of value, we have so much to offer, and what we need to do for ourselves is make sure that we fill our chalice first. And so often we come at the bottom of our list. It's, the kids, it's your partner, it's everything, all your responsibilities. And then if there's any time left over, then that's you. And we all know the old adage around, if the plane is going down, you fit your oxygen mask first before you help everyone else, because if you're not okay, you're no good to anyone else. So I really think the most important thing, and this is what I coach with my clients, is whatever those things are that fill your chalice first, you've got to do that for yourself. And that could be as small as attending a yoga class, or it could be doing meditation, or, buying yourself some flowers. Those sorts of things that add so much sparkle and, fun and joy to yourself, and valuing yourself, so that then your chalice is full and you're operating from a place of fullness. That makes a huge difference. Huge.
So agree. And I totally was the woman at the bottom of the list for so many years.
Oh, me too, Sandy. Same. Me too, until you exhaust yourself and then there's nothing left and you're like this little heap in the corner. You sort of learn by default, don't you?
Yeah. And also what was really interesting after my divorce was that my kids, when I started taking care of myself, they started respecting me more. And that was fuel for me to keep doing it. And I think a lot of people fear that if we take care of ourselves, it's selfish. It teaches other people, I don't know what, we make up all kinds of things that aren't true, right?
I think you're so right. Like, that word selfish, it can be such a double-edged sword, because you just need to fill your chalice first. Like now with yoga is my thing. I love my yoga. And now with my family, if I'm a little stressed out or, I've got a little bit on my plate, my son will actually come up to me and go, "Mum, have you done your yoga class today?" And I'll go, which is so, they recognize that my chalice needs to be filled. And I'm like, it's just so healthy when you can do this. And I think we learn it by absolutely, being so overwhelmed and overworked that something has to change. But wouldn't it be great if we teach future generations, especially women, to actually go and do these things rather than have to have that experience?
Mm-hmm. Totally. How old's your son?
He just turned 16, but really, Sandy, he's like 4,000. It's like having Yoda as your son. Like, it's really like having your grandfather as your son. Like, he will sort of laugh at me and go, "Oh, you're not going to do that, are you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, like, how did you get so old?"
Well, he has a wise mother. I think that it starts there.
Apple doesn't fall far from the coconut.
Yes. My oldest daughter has 3 kids, and she is
Oh,
now
lovely.
learning this. Yeah, she has a beautiful family. They live in Israel, and she doesn't have any help, and she only has 1 kid in school. So she has a 7-month-old, a 3-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And
Wow.
I really have so much respect for how she's parenting, because she's learning earlier than I did that she needs to take care of herself. And she sees the results very quickly. Like if she hasn't exercised and she hasn't eaten well and she hasn't remembered to take care of her needs and say no to the things that don't feed her, she suffers, and her kids suffer, and her husband suffers. And the most beautiful thing to watch for me is her 3-year-old has learned that she needs to breathe when she's stressed out. And
Oh,
she'll
that is
say, right,
amazing.
isn't that? And so she'll say to her mom,
Oh,
can you help me with my breathing? And
I love it.
right, like I think that is so amazing that a 3-year-old can tap into emotions and self-regulation and all the things that we all need to do and forget to do. And so we can learn a
Well,
lot from the younger generation, right?
oh, I totally agree. The other thing that you said that's just so powerful is learning to say no, because, none of us know how much time we have on the planet, and time is the most precious thing. So you really need to prioritize the things that you say yes to. So I kind of actually have a rule. I always say yes first until I learn enough about whatever it is, and then I say no. So I'd go, well, tell me more, explain it to me. How does it work? What do I need to do? What's the outcome? And then if it's a yes, it's a yes. And if it's a no, it's a no. But really, really coveting your time, because on your deathbed, you're not going to look back and, wish that you'd worked more. You're going to look back and go, I really wish I'd taken that trip to Africa with the family, or whatever it is. So having that realization now about the power of saying no, and the power of every minute that we have, how special it is, I think that's a huge realization for anyone, including myself.
Well, I love that you brought up how you say yes or no, because I think that's brilliant. I think that most people say yes or no without really thinking it through. And then there's the
True.
regret, right? So you're asking questions, you're getting curious, you have more information. So your no's and your yeses are well informed. Whereas a
That's
lot of people don't do that. They don't take the time, and then they step back. And certainly I have done that so many times. And I have a great story of a second yes, where I said yes to something because it really was resonant for me. And then the person asked me for a second yes that was like, are you freaking kidding me? And I didn't know how to say no at that point, because I was already stuck in the first yes. And so it was a hard one for me. And I had to do a sort of a backpedal a little bit. And after I said yes to the second thing, I had to call her up and say, you know what, I said yes without thinking, and I really can't do this.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. The yes no conversation is really interesting, because I think when you're overwhelmed or you've got too much on your plate, you're more likely to say no. And sometimes the thing that you're saying no to is the very thing that you need. So, I was a purist coach for 12 years, just doing coaching and keynote speaking, and I wouldn't really entertain anything else. And then out of my periphery, 2 really tiny, weeny opportunities came to me, and I thought to myself, oh, well, that's a waste of time, isn't it? And something inside me said, just give it a go and see. And it's actually ended up being something massive in my life, from something so small. It's like a seed. And I think so often we overlook those seeds of potential, because our plate is already full. And that's where we need to reprioritize and go, is whatever is on our plate, is it what we want? Does it bring us joy? Does it serve us? Is it best for our growth? So you need to constantly look at that and go, is it still working the way we want it to work? Are we still growing? Are we still joyful? Or could I do a reshuffle and look at something else?
Brilliant. It's so important to be conscious about the choices we make. We are often on
Completely.
autopilot and don't realize that we're making choices that are not even ours anymore. They're not working for us. And we might piss some people off by saying no to those things, and people will be like, well, wait a minute, who are you now? You're the person who used to always do that. And it's
I think
okay. right?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head again. I think as women, we don't want to piss people off. We want people to like us, and we want to be, nurturing and caring and all that. So to say no and piss someone else off is something we don't want to do. But to honor ourselves, you need to be honest with yourself, and you can say no in the best possible way. Like right now, that doesn't work. There's your no.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice way to say it. Yeah, I teach a whole course on boundaries and communication skills. This is changing our lives when we can step into taking charge of our yeses and nos and really creating those boundaries. The right people will stay in our life and respect us, and the wrong people will get pissed off and keep pushing against our boundaries. But what they're saying really is that their needs are more important than ours, and those people don't belong in our life.
I absolutely agree. And the other thing is too, I see that often fear will come up as well around, say, if it's a yes that's very unknown, a lot of fear will come up around that. And so people will be either hesitant or they won't want to do it because it's unknown. And often I think we can miss out on some of the most amazing experiences because that unknown is not comfortable for us. It's challenging. We don't have certainty around it. And I think the second that you decide that uncertainty is a comfortable place, your life can be so much more enriched in experience, because you just go, well, this doesn't feel great. It feels weird because I haven't done it before, while you investigate that journey, while you investigate that option. And I actually, last year I got involved in cryptocurrency. I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about blockchain. I knew nothing about how it worked, but I started really, really small. And the thing is, I learned and I grew, and I'm like, wow, that's actually really become something massive in my, not just my life, but I get paid in Bitcoin now. Whereas before I didn't even think that was real. And if I'd never looked at it, I would miss out. I would miss out on not just the opportunity it represents, but the growth and learning that I've received in changing the way I live. Because imagine a world where nobody worries about money, then we can actually live a life that's on purpose. And that's something I'm really committed to, as well as helping people be financially free through harnessing their gifts and living a soul purpose life. Especially women, because often they're left to look after the kids in certain situations. It often falls back to the woman to be the provider for everyone, including the kids.
Oh yeah. And I mean, overcoming fear it's a podcast in and of itself.
That's another episode.
It is such a great topic, though. I think that all the good stuff happens on the other side of the comfort zone, and we tend to want to live in that little safe space. But look what happened when you learned about cryptocurrency. Now you got me to want to really look at this, because I've been avoiding that topic altogether. But I think that, anything that scares us, if it has something to do with our sense of purpose and it really answers a why for us, I think it helps us to overcome the fear, because the why is bigger than the fear.
That's exactly right. And that's about, you've mentioned this before, Sandy, in the podcast about conscious choices. Like, you have to know yourself first, understand your heart, how you tick, what are you here for, what are you doing, how do you want to live? And when you understand what your purpose is, then your doors open. Like, you start to move from a place of flow. Like Chick Chap McHale wrote that book, Flow. And when you're in flow, all your doors open, and even the doors that feel unknown or challenging because you don't understand what's on the other side, they're the events or experiences that make you. Like for me, when I was homeless, living in a tent on food bank handouts, living on less than $500 a month, and I lived in that poverty for over 12 years, I could never, ever have imagined being #1 business or performance coach globally, or, global visionary of the year. Like, are you kidding? That wasn't even on my radar. But at the same time, if I'd never been that low and, lived with such poverty that I created because of my mindset, I had a poverty mindset, then I would never have reached for these heights, because I never want to go back there. So it's such a huge driver. And what now that my life is so amazing, I want to help others that they can create any life that they want, especially women. Like, I'm all about empowering women to create their own wealth, create their own lives, and show their children that they can do whatever they want. And I've got a lot of single mums I work with who I've taken help them create wealth through the poverty that they had, just by changing their mindset, just by allowing themselves to be wealthy and allowing themselves to step into a place of freedom, so that they can now actually, do the things they're meant to do on this planet, live their soul-centered, heart-centered life.
Wow. So you just touched on your story of poverty, and this whole podcast really is about how you turned that tragedy into the career that you have today. So if you can take us back to that time, like how did you end up homeless? Take us through that story.
So I've been blessed by many tragedies, and in a nutshell, the last tragedy was when I had a business. I had a health retreat. I had 35 staff, and I was married to a beautiful man, and I had a 1-year-old child, and I was living my ex-husband's Canadian, so I was living in Canada at the time. And one day, my business partner was an amazing baker. So she used to make all these amazing cakes, and I'm a terrible baker. So one day I actually baked this amazing cake, and I would normally call my husband to borrow the car to, go and pick things up. And for that particular day, I actually said to my business partner, "Can I borrow your car?" So that meant I didn't need my husband's car. So I went home and I drove into our yard and walked down the door, put the key in the door, unlocked the door, walked through the hallway, and I saw a flash of pink. And I went, "Oh, that's kind of weird." And anyway, as I turned the corner, there was my husband in my sexy black lacy lingerie, which was a wedding present. And he was doing an interview over the phone, and he finished the interview and he came over to me and he held my hands and he said, "I've always wanted to be a girl." And I'm a homeopath as well as a mum. And I put the mother and the wife on one side, and I jumped into the homeopath mindset. And I thought, it does matter what I say in this moment. Like, what I say in this moment could either make or break what he's just told me, which is just amazing. I even had that awareness. And I held his hands and I said, "You're going to be a beautiful girl." And I took the cheesecake off the stove and I ran out the door and I cried every day for 18 months. Now, at this time, I didn't realize that I was actually in shock, because I didn't believe it. I thought that maybe that it was a fetish. I didn't understand that actually he literally was transgender and wanted to, become a girl, literally wanted to do that. And I had all these questions around my own identity and my own sexuality and stuff, like, if you are that, then who am I? Because I thought I was the girl in the relationship, and now I'm not the girl in the relationship. Okay, so I lived with this daily, just waiting for him to say to me, "Well, actually, it's just a joke." And, wow, because we used to play a lot of jokes on each other, and we'd been together for 10 years. And then one day I realized that it wasn't a joke. And he used to go to work every day and dress up as, he used to go to work every day as a firefighter. And then he'd come home at night and dress up as Sasha, and I'd put my son to sleep. And my head couldn't hold it. It was like someone saying how many stars are in the sky. And I couldn't find the answers to that. What I didn't realize was, because this was such a huge shock, then I wasn't moving from a place where I wasn't making good decisions anymore, because I was in shock. Because, when you've had a trauma, like if you've had a loss, or, someone's cheated on you, or whatever it is, whatever trauma you've had, when you're in that place of pain or shock, you don't make good decisions because you're no longer balanced. Your mindset's not balanced. So I asked my husband to leave. And at that time, my business was failing and my payroll was $30,000 every 2 weeks. I had 35 staff. I had a 1-year-old son. I had a husband who now wants to become a woman. It was too much. So what I decided to do, because it made sense to me, I decided I would house sit, because if I house sat, then I could use that money to pay the girls, because the payroll was so huge. And I thought, you know what, I'll house sit for 6 to 8 weeks and it'll be fine, no problems. So I house sat for over 3 years in over 40 houses. And the thing is, when you are constantly on the move, so it's very stressful, because I was packing up my stuff, into the truck and moving and trying to find the next house sit. And I remember one night I didn't have another house sit. I was actually moving out of this A-frame, And I was moving into my car, and there was a girl who was sort of hanging out of her balcony, and she just said to me, she goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm moving." And she goes, "Well, where are you going?" I said, "Well, actually, I don't know, because that night I didn't have anywhere to sleep." And she said to me, she said, "Well, my husband and I, we're going to Hawaii. Why don't you take our place for a month?" I went, "Oh, fantastic." So I moved back into the place that she was at. And so it went on and on and on. And at this point too, I needed more money. So I used to wake my son up at 3 a.m. in the morning. And I used to go and clean a restaurant and then go to work, to drop him at daycare, go to work, then pick him up, and then, to see clients or do client calls, and then go to bed. And after 40 house sits in 3 years, I was just too tired. I just didn't care anymore. There was nothing left inside. Like, I was just absolutely a fragment of myself. Like, there was nothing left. So I'm just like, I cannot ask for another house sit. I'm just over it. So I asked my girlfriend for a tent. Like, you can't imagine. Then now I have a tent, which means that I have my own place. I can put it up, that sort of thing. I'm on food bank handouts, which does, while I was very grateful that I could go to the food bank, my self-esteem was so low, it was ridiculous. And I used to pray to God every night, "Please, God, help me get out of this situation." And I thought like that God wasn't listening, because please, God, help me get out of the situation. And what I didn't realize was that I was looking at my situation with the same light, and I felt so responsible to these 35 girls for their payroll that I just have to keep doing it. I thought I was going to die in that business. Like, I'll never leave that business. I didn't know how to leave that business. And then one day my mum called, and she said that she was really sick, and I'm one of 8 kids. And if anyone's going to help my mum, it's going to be me, because of a variety of reasons. And I thought to myself, if my mum dies, because my mum was in Australia and I was in Canada, if my mum dies because I can't figure out a way out of this tent, I will never forgive myself. And isn't it interesting, when you find a bigger problem, you'll solve the problem that you had. So the problem I had was that I was homeless, living on food bank handouts with nothing. But when I knew that my mum could potentially die or not be well enough to make it through, oh my God, how fast did I solve my problem? I mean, I could have done this at any point in those 3 years, but I didn't see that for myself. I couldn't see what I needed to do to get out of my situation. So my mum calls and says, "I'm really not doing very well." Well, within 4 days, I was on the phone calling friends saying, "I need money, I need points, I have to get back to Australia, I need to look after my mum." So all of a sudden, I'm out of that situation. It didn't mean that situation went away, because I still had a business and had staff, and I was trying to do it over the phone with my business partner. Like, it was a very messy situation. When my mum got better, then I had to look at myself, because it took about 6 or 8 months for my mum to get better. And when she got better, I looked at myself, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to sort this out? But I had 6-figure debt. I owed hundreds of thousands of dollars, because my business basically, fell apart, and I had so many people I owed money to. I just couldn't even imagine moving forward. And then someone had said, "Well, why don't you think about coaching?" And what I wanted was a job. Like, what makes sense to me is get a regular paycheck. But this tiny little voice inside said, no, the coaching is for you. And then I started to research coaching. And of course I wanted to do the best coaching course, because I didn't have any confidence. I didn't believe I could stand on my own 2 feet. So I started researching, and the course I wanted to do was $35,000. It was a 10-day course. It was equivalent to 7 years of my income. And I already had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. Like, is that not the dumbest decision to make? But I decided, the little voice inside, my heart, my soul said, do the coaching. And I cannot even tell you how stressed out I was figuring out how to make that money happen to go and do that course. And I literally made a miracle happen, because I would go and ask people and try and figure out how to get a loan from the bank. And I would be constantly told, no, you're living, at that stage I was living in housing commission with my mum, because she also didn't have any money. So we're sharing a 1-bedroom unit with my son, myself and my mum, between the bed, the floor and the couch. So now I'm, going to the bank, and they keep saying no. But the biggest thing is, I just had this resolve inside me that our lives had to be better. I would not accept this life of poverty. And so my my absolute driver was to create something better for my family. And that strength, I'm so grateful for the difficult times I had. Like, I look back now on those times in the tent and I thank God every day for those 3 years, because now I'm the #1 business coach because of that, because it gave me the drive to, I will not stop until my family is taken care of. I will not stop until I reach whatever heights my soul needs to reach so that I can help billions of people on the planet. And it was tiny little things on the way. I did make that money happen because I never stopped. Instead of going to the bank and asking for a loan, I finally went to the bank and asked them how to get a loan. That's a totally different question. When they told me how I could get the loan, did I get the loan? Of course not. But what I did get was a small credit card. The credit card was $2,000, and I didn't go, oh my God, I need to, now I still need $3,000. I went, I'm on my way. I found $2,000. So by the time I needed to put that money together, it came, 20 different ways. A friend of mine even helped me with the flights. Even when I arrived in Vegas to do the course, I didn't have any money then. The guys were going down to the gambling to play on the tables like roulette and blackjack and stuff. And some of them were winning really big. So they were like tossing me chips, like a $50 chip here and there. I'm like, great, I can live on that this week. And at the end of that course, like the 2 weeks, they just said, the facilitator said, well, who's the most inspirational person here? And the room was full of like CEOs from different countries. And everybody said that I was the most inspirational person. I went, oh my God, I'm inspirational. So I like clung to that, like you cling to a life raft. I'm like, I am using this inspirational thing, whatever it is. This is going to be my ticket to transform my life, look after my family and help other people. And kind of the rest is history, but not necessarily. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my education, becoming a coach. Like, there's not a course I haven't done. I've paid back nearly all of that debt. And I've also created a massive amount of wealth in the last 10 years. What I want to do is help women to find their way, no matter what their circumstance is. It's not a problem. Problems do not exist. We just don't have the resources or the ideas to fix it. We are under-resourced or lacking creativity in fixing it. If I can get out of a tent and off food bank handouts to the #1 business and performance coach in the world and the #1 global visionary, I can help many people to live their lives on purpose. And I will work till my very last breath to help as many women, as many people as I can to live that life. So, sorry, that's not really a nutshell, is it, Sandy?
It's an amazing story. It's okay that it's not a nutshell. That's a lot to tell in a short period of time, because you're telling me many years of many things that happened. So
yeah, it was a difficult time that's been amazing now, but during it was horrible during those years.
Yeah, and I can only imagine, but I do agree with you that so much of what's good in our lives comes from those lowest times
That's it.
And what I also heard you say several times is that what really motivated you was doing it for others. And not only do you do your work today to inspire other women and to help other women to find the resources to live their life on purpose, but your mom was a catalyst, get out of the tent.
She was.
Right? So again, it's like much easier to do these things for other people, because doing them for ourselves, it kind of brings us back to the beginning of our conversation, that we often aren't motivated enough to do it just for us. But you have a family, you have your mom, your mom is sick, you have to somehow get to Australia, and you're going to find a way to do it. And then you're going to find a way to support your family. And I love that. I love the drive that just kicked in.
It's, the thing is too, as a woman, because we grow our children, we nurture them, we give birth to them, we feed them, the whole thing. Most women would give their lives for their children. It's just innate in us. Like, it's a very natural thing. And I think the second that my son was living in the tent as well, I couldn't afford a swimming lesson for him. I couldn't put a T-shirt on his back. I wanted to be one of those mums that took my kid to Disneyland, and then my mum getting sick. My God, was that a motivator? And the funny thing is, like, even though now I have wealth and options and stuff, I'm still very driven to look after my family, because I'll never forget what that was like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's imprinted in you.
Yeah, it is.
I,
It is.
yeah, I mean, our traumas imprint, and I think
True.
that when we can work to do something that is the outcome of the pain, it makes all the pain worthwhile in many ways.
You know what? I love that you just said that, because without that pain, I mean, the same like the pain of childbirth, and then you get to hold the beautiful baby. Like without that pain, there's no way I'd be able to transform so many other people's lives. Like I'm able to help people find keys that they don't believe exist. Not just because the experiences I've had, also my training, but it's the thing I most love to do is then give someone else the key to their own freedom. So yeah, we're so blessed to go through those difficult times, lay a path for the most joyful times. Like the Buddhists say, the chosen few are so lucky to experience tragedy, because it's only through tragedy that you can then actually fully realize true joy in every cell of your being, because then you've experienced both. Because there's plenty of people who kind of coast through life, and life just is a very similar experience. Like there's not a great difference between joy and tragedy. So I sort of think some of those people are they're kind of not quite awake, or they're living from a sort of I'm dead place, because their experience of life is not as fulfilling. It sounds strange, but the variety of their experience is not great.
I hear you 100%, and it's
I'm glad you understood what I was saying.
100%. I've had a lot of tragedy in my life, and one of the things that I experienced with my husband, my ex-husband, was the loss of a child. And
sorry.
Thank you. I share my story because, as difficult as it is and as tragic as it is to lose a child, how we grow, learn, what it makes us, who we become in the process, is really the most important thing. And some of the things that I did, and this is way before I became a coach, was to help other people. And this was back in 1980s. He was born in 1986. So he
Wow.
lived 5 years. He died in 1991. And
Oh,
a friend
wow.
of mine was a writer, and she wanted to tell my story for a parenting magazine. And so together we wrote this article, and they had never published anything like this before, where the whole focus really was about the joy that he brought to our lives. It wasn't about like, what was me and oh my God. And I was getting phone calls from women from all over the country who read this article and said it made them appreciate the children they had. It just gave them pause. It helped them in so many ways. And that power
Please send me the article, Sandy. That's bringing a tear to my eye. That's so beautiful. Please send me the article.
I will do that. But it's called Avi's Smile, and it was in Parent magazine, Parenting Parent, one of those big ones.
Yeah.
And nothing was online. I mean, we didn't have the internet in those days. And so, but just that power of taking crisis and turning it into a gift and turning it into something that we can offer to other people. And at the same time, my ex-husband was very shut down, and really, who he became in the process was something that really took us into two different directions. And there are many people like going through a similar experience, and they go through it in such different ways. And so, if you can use your crisis and turn it into a gift, you benefit so much, and so do so many others. And so I love your story, and I love how you turned it into a gift for so many.
Yeah, I think when it comes to your own survival, like, when I was listening to the news the other day, and I heard this guy who was actually stuck in a refugee camp for 18 years. And then he went on to become a doctor. I'm like, oh my God, imagine being in a refugee camp for 18 years and then you start your life. So I just think we are already so blessed beyond belief that if we have the capacity to create shift and to create a change in our culture or our environment or our society, then that is our responsibility. And that's what I know. I have this gift and I need to share it. I need to help people with what I have, as we all should, because we live in a collective. We live, in a community. We live with other people, and we all have gifts. That's the thing. Some people don't believe they have gifts, but they do. They just haven't discovered them yet.
I think discovering your gifts is so much of the part of the coaching that I love. It's helping people to own their gifts, right?
So
And
true.
then share them with others, because we're taught to keep ourselves quiet and humble and don't talk about ourselves. And but if we don't, then other people can't find themselves in our stories. And I
It's
think
so
that's the
true.
beauty, right?
I totally agree. I totally agree. The more that we share, and the more that we share from that place of vulnerability, like we share from a heart-centered space, because everyone wants to be happy and want to be fulfilled. The more we share, like the good, the bad, the ugly, the honest story, the more that we can help, and the more that we can shift the planet and leave a legacy. Actually, leave a legacy for our kids. Like, and that to me is actually a life well lived. A life well lived is living your life on purpose, a soul heart-centered life. That's a life well lived.
Absolutely agree with you. And I love that you brought up leaving a legacy for your children. I think that that was another motivator for me, was to change the legacy for my children. And there was a moment when I started learning about boundaries and talking to my mom, who was like the martyr victim, just always
Yeah.
just baking too much and doing things for people. And why aren't they doing it back? And she said, well, I can't help it. I come from a long line of martyrs. My grandmother, my mother, everybody was martyrs. And I turned to her and I said, yeah, I come from that same line, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you can end it. You don't have to just hide behind that story. And so my children, giving our kids the gift. And if we don't have children, then giving it to others, knowing that we can change our stories and change our future. So loving this conversation. Let's talk about what you're creating right now in the world. What are you creating?
So right now I'm working on a program actually called Business FX, which is a 10-week online mastermind. And the reason I'm doing that is it allows more people to have access to the coaching that I do, because a lot of my coaching is private. So I do a lot of keynote speaking, and it's just a way to help more people have access to what I can give them. And it's, a much more affordable price point. And what I've done is I've got like a formula for success, which I've been working on for 10 years to help people unlock the door to their greatness and their freedom and create, financial success. Like I worked with these farmers who they were $6 million in the hole, like they owed $6 million and the bank was going to take back their property, had been in their farm in their family for like 5 generations. And I worked with them for 3 years. And at the end of 3 years, they had a $15 million business and they could retire. And then they, put some of those into investments and, bought another farm, and they never have to worry about money again. But what really happened for them is they had a poverty mindset and they didn't understand what it was like to have a wealth mindset. And once they shifted that mindset, then their world shifted, because we will only tolerate the success that comes to us to the level that we can take it on in our identity. And if our identity doesn't match that level of success and happiness, we just won't take it on. So we've got a glass ceiling. Like, it's not the things that you're achieving, it's the self-limiting beliefs that stop us achieving what we want to achieve. And they are the things in my mind that need the most help, because when you break through a self-limiting belief, that's when you achieve the success. But most people think I've got to go after the success, but how come I can't get there? Because that self-limiting belief is blocking you. So that's what I'm doing in the 10-week program. Of course, I have private clients as well, but usually I have them for 2 to 3 years. So it's rare to pick up one of those slots. And obviously I do keynote speaking on lots of different things, mindset and, empowering people and success and quantum physics. Like I do a lot of keynote speaking, and of course on my story from, rags to riches type thing. So yeah. And the thing is, where my business is going is in the next 3 years, my business will be fully charity, just helping mothers and children. I've been working on that for about 7 years. I already help 300 kids in Africa with all their school supplies, but that's not enough. I want to be building schools and hospitals and helping more. So I know that in 3 years' time, my business will be a charity.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're doing so much good in the world, and oh, thanks. I just, I'm so inspired by the fact that you have created this, and not only created your own wealth, but create wealth for others, help others create wealth, and to go full circle to help to make your business a charity so that everyone can have access. I just think that's so beautiful.
Thank you so much. Like, it's obviously it's been a process. Like, it's taken me my whole life to get to this point. And, I had, as it does, and I had all those issues around money myself. And as I've overcome them and transformed my mindset into a wealth abundance mindset, so I can help other people, because, the most selfish thing you can do is to not work on yourself, because you'll never realize your greatness, and then you can't use it. It's kind of like having a secret ingredient in the cupboard to make an amazing cake that you never use.
Right. And, I think that you're reminding me of the Marianne Williamson quote that it's not our fear. Our fear is that we will be powerful beyond measure. We're
That's
not,
exactly right.
right. And I think, I see it in the boundaries course that I'm teaching right now with my co-leader. We watch women who are so afraid to speak up about things that are their human rights, very basic human rights, just to ask somebody, please don't walk in my door without knocking, just something as simple as that. And they're so afraid of hurting somebody else, but they're not taking care of themselves. So they become so other focused. And I think if we just say, step into that power, you have the right to have that life, to have people listen to you, especially if you're opening your house to other people and they're not listening. If you don't speak up, they'll never know.
The other thing I think that's, really disempowering for not just women, but for pretty much everyone, is people worry too much about what other people will think, other people's judgments. I'm like, they're entitled to their judgments, whatever they think. It doesn't matter if it's good, bad, or ugly. While you're invested in what someone else thinks, you're not doing what you want. And I see that over and over again, whether that's your husband, your wife, your parents, whoever it is. People don't live their lives because they're worried about what someone else thinks. And we need to break free, not to hurt anyone by what we do, as long as what we're doing is, is good and on purpose. You just need to do it. Like, I've heard everything about myself, good, bad, and ugly. And you know what? Everyone's entitled to those opinions. Like, they might be true for them. It's just not true for me.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And again, if you're so other focused, you will not take care of yourself, and you will not do what you described as a woman of value, which is to fill the cup, fill the chalice first. I mean, I've watched my clients, as soon as I help them, like, just try to name like what the issue is and what they want to say, they just get so shut down because they immediately go into, what will they say about me? And so it's that mindset, right? Back to, how will I feel when this is spoken? How will I feel when I have my needs met? That's a whole different way to think.
And I have a rule also around what you hear about yourself. Like, if I hear it once, like if someone says, I don't like that you're wearing yellow, or that you're late, or whatever it is, if I hear it once, I don't care. If I hear it twice, I go, oh, I've heard that before. And if I hear it a third time, I go, do I want to improve that? Like, is that something I could use to improve my life or what I'm doing? And so if I hear it a third time, I'll decide, should I be looking at that to improve it for myself? And usually I will.
Oh, I like that. All feedback isn't bad feedback. It can be really helpful to us if we can sift and sort, right? We have to figure out what to keep and what to throw back into the pile. All right.
Because you can't see yourself from inside the jar. You can't see the label from inside the jar. So we need the feedback to grow. Without feedback, you can't grow. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I belong to Toastmasters, where we get feedback for every speech, and I love receiving and giving feedback. I think it's just so important to be open. Let's go to the lightning round, where I'm going to ask you a bunch of quick questions. And are you ready?
I am ready. I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed now. It's nearly 5 a.m.
Okay. All right. So, Rhiannon, I used to think I wasn't blank enough.
I used to think I wasn't funny enough.
Oh, that's interesting. We didn't talk about your humor.
Well, what made you think that? Now, well, I think humor is so important. I think it's so important to be able to laugh at yourself and not take yourself so seriously. And I remember, maybe about 20 years ago, when I was having a really tough time, and someone said to me, you're just taking it all too seriously. And you know what? They were such wise words. I stopped taking things so seriously. And boy, did that change the quality of my life.
I think that it's also very fear-based, right?
Yeah, because your judgment and stuff, because, your jokes don't always land, and they still don't always land.
Right. It's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to be funny because you're
Yeah.
not going to make everybody laugh. I know. I was married to a professional comedian, actually.
Oh, you were? Wow.
I was. That's a whole other story. Yeah. So humor is extremely personal. And it's also what I found is it really is about our worldview. It's how we see the world. And we all see the world differently.
It's funny you say that, Sandy, because my ex-husband was Canadian. I remember I was in a house party. There was probably 50, 60 people in this house, and there was half Canadians and half Australians. And I was joking about something, and I'm not kidding, Sandy. The Canadians went, "Oh my God, she's the most awful, awful woman ever." And the Australians went, "Oh my God, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard." Because really culturally it doesn't always wash.
Yeah, exactly. And I, as a single woman now, I have so many men who try out humor on a first phone call, and I'm like, it's not funny. I didn't even know you were making a joke, right? It's just like, what? We laugh at different things, but that's good to know.
Yeah, that's
all right.
it.
Next question. What was the number one thing holding you back from becoming a woman of value?
My poverty, victim, scarcity mindset, which I didn't even realize that I had one. I didn't even know there was such a thing. And, my life had been full of drama. Like, people used to call me for the latest update, and I was better than, Days of Our Lives. So I didn't realize I was living in that poverty, victim, scarcity until my coach pointed it out. And at first I would reject it. I'm like, I don't have that. And then I kind of had to look at my life and go, oh yeah, I've walked away from, men who were wealthy. And then I did live on $500 a month for 12 years. And I don't like it if people give me money. I'd rather have time with people. So when I started to realize the impact of that mindset, then I really wanted to work on it. And I've worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. Now I have a wealth, abundance, expansion mindset. But, that did not happen overnight.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
What is the best advice you can give to a woman who wants to become more empowered?
First of all, be kind to yourself, and then really, really look at yourself and have an awareness around the things that bring you joy, and then start to look at your life and just value your time. What are you going to do with the time that you have here? What brings you great joy? What fills your chalice? And once you have an awareness around that, then the doors will open, because you will lead with your heart and opportunities will show up that match your heart. And then just keep following that. Follow your greatness. Don't worry about the fear. There will be fear, but fear is not even real. Just be comfortable being uncomfortable and go as far as you can with the time that you have here. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the experiences that we have. We don't want to be on our deathbed going that we didn't do X, Y, or Z.
Amen, sister. All right.
Amen, sister.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say to my younger self, you are enough. You are absolutely enough, because I never felt that I was enough as a child, and I was always told I wasn't good enough. So, yeah, I would say to myself, you are enough.
You are enough.
Yeah.
What is one thing people get wrong about you?
Well, the funny thing is, and it's funny you were just talking about, being a single woman and dating and stuff, is most men are so intimidated by me because I'm a speaker. Like, I come off the stage and so they want to conquer me, and it's just very strange because they see this powerful woman on stage, and so they're very intimidated. But I'm kind of like the girl next door. I just have a job where I'm the stage girl. You know what I mean? So, even though I know I'm powerful, I know I'm a powerful woman, but that doesn't mean that I'm not gentle and not ordinary as well in my own way. Do you know what I mean? So I think people see what I do for work, and they don't necessarily see who I am. Like, the people who have known me through high school and all that, they totally that's all they see is that girl at high school. They look at my books and stuff and go, well, I don't see that. And that keeps our relationships very real. But people who didn't know me when I was younger who meet me now, it somehow challenges who they are. So what happens is that they bring out this kind of powerful conquering thing to match it, whereas that's just how on stage you need to project, you need to be a big presence so people can see you, like it's, you know, it's part of my job.
Yeah, I can relate to all of that.
Yeah, I bet I would rather, you know, be with a soulmate, someone who's, you know, on the same page you know, as me, really enjoying that, or I'll be single, because I'm not going to just be with someone to be with them. I don't need that. Like, if there's not that soulful connection, forget it. Like, hey, life is good over here.
Yes, exactly. It has to be amazing, or, you know, and a real partnership where you're getting value. Both of you are getting value and you're both inspired by each other, or it's not going to happen.
I agree.
I agree.
Totally agree.
All right. Well, final question, even though I would love to talk to you more, but we do have to end at some point.
I've really enjoyed this, Sandy. This has been awesome. I love your questions. I love the way you run your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, you're an amazing guest. So, Rhiannon, the big question, the legacy question, how would you like to be remembered?
For my thousands of schools and hospitals that I will build, and that I lived from a place of loving kindness. Family, faith, and friends were my number one things through my life. That's how I would like to be remembered.
Family, faith, and friends.
Yeah.
Important things to remember. You know, so many people get wealthy and they forget the important stuff. They forget what's really at the core. And I love that you haven't forgotten what really matters.
Well, the other thing is too, because I'm sort of, you know, one for all and all for one, it doesn't work if just one person gets wealthy. Like, we need to create wealth and freedom for everyone. So it has to be a collective. And that's why my company is Conscious Coaching Collective. It has to be collective. So I want to help as many people find their freedom, that money is absolutely not even on the table, because there's more than enough money for them to live, so that then they can live on purpose, a soulful, heart-centered life. Because imagine the world then, the world just would be healed in so many ways if people could live from the space, their heart, soul purpose, and not worry about money. That, my God, they would make totally different choices. I mean, how many people are in jobs that they hate, or they do things that they don't want to do because they feel driven to make that happen? That used to be me. I was thinking that I used to have to live like that too. Not anymore. And I want to help people just to wake up, that they can make conscious choices and that they deserve an amazing life. Everyone, every sentient being on the planet deserves an amazing life.
A beautiful way to end the podcast. So tell us how people can find you.
Consciouscoaching.coach is my website, or rhiannonrees.com. So the Business FX page is on the rhiannonrees.com. And of course, I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and all of that as well. Rhiannon Rees, Conscious Coaching Collective.
Well, thank you so much, Rhiannon. This was a fantastic conversation. I feel inspired. I feel alive and awakened. And I know so many people will benefit so much from hearing your story and your amazing gift that you're sharing with the world.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I've really, really enjoyed this, and I'm really keen to read your story as well. Like, I just think that's amazing that you wrote it that way. And I literally had a tear in my eye when you were saying it. So I definitely want to read that story. Like, I thank you so much for the interview, and I look forward to learning more about you and reading that story.
If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.